anchors tying us to what we'll call home, even if the side of it is not yet.
This is definitely stronger than the stuff we get at home. Oh dear me. I'm so sorry. The 996 Porsche 911, it was a revolutionary car when it came out in 1997, but it was also very controversial. But is it any good? Should you care? Why, let's find out, shall we? Porsche, los geht's!
Here we are with anchors tying us to what we'll call home, even if the side of it has not yet touched our eyes. And here we are and we're together, even if we are apart. And we're together when we're together, something big is happening among us. It's not as if we don't have to deal with our shortcomings. It's not as if we don't have to wipe away the tears. From time to time we wouldn't lie.
So welcome to a special Christmas episode of Tweed Jacket Reviews. This is a 2000 Porsche 911 996 Carrera 2 Tiptronic. It's been very kindly lent to Mr. Franks and I today by a gentleman by the name of Pete. So thanks, Pete. Feet. Before we get into more details about the 996 Porsche 911, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave a comment below. It really helps and allows us to spread the love of Tweed Jackets all over the internet.
I was just panicking, thinking I've lost my phone.
So just one thing to address straight away. There are several ways you can say the name of the company. If you really want to be correct, I have a degree in German, and so we can sort of approximate what the name of the founder would be, Mr. Ferdinand Porsche. He was called Mr. Porsche. That's, I think, the approximation from my time at the University of Heidelberg. That might be incorrect. I don't know. A lot of people in this country just say Porsche. A lot of people settle on the pronunciation Porsche. I'm probably going to go for Porsche today. That might be incorrect. I know James Martin and JM on Cars might not appreciate me doing that, but that's what I'm going to say, and I will try to avoid it as much as possible. Other ways of saying the name of the maker are obviously correct as well. That's just the way that I'm going to be saying it. So the 996 is not the kind of car that we'd normally have on Tweed Jacket Reviews or on the channel generally at all. We would not normally have a car like this, but because it's Christmas and because here we are up in Edinburgh with Mr. Franks, then why not? It's an enjoyable thing to try. This is the Tiptronic version, so it's automatic. There is obviously a 6-speed manual available as well. The car was launched in late 1997, and it was continued until 2004 for the standard model, and some of the other models continued until 2006. Obviously, this is one of the most affordable ways into 911 ownership. This car, when it was bought about 18 months ago, actually only cost £11,000. You can't buy them for that anymore, I don't think, but that was what it was at the time. Obviously, normally 911s are very, very expensive cars indeed. Very, very expensive.
When you refer to something as 911, it's difficult to...
I don't like this. One thing I've just discovered about this car is the suspension. It's very firm, particularly when you drive over cobbles or some of the worst roads in Edinburgh. That's not something that I think I could live with all the time. Supposedly this is one of the easiest supercars, if I can use that term, to live with. I don't think I would find it easy to live with if I drove on cobbles every day and the road was bad. I imagine prices for these start at about £12,000 to £15,000 now, not the 11 that was paid for this back about 18 months ago. When it came out in late 1997, this was an absolute revolution for the company. They had always built cars that had air-cooled engines. This does not. This is a water-cooled engine. It's still in the back. It's still a 6-cylinder, but it's water-cooled. It's a 3.4 litre engine with 300 PS. I'm going to be using the PS figures for horsepower because actually they're easy to be defined. It actually feels, just driving around, apart from the really firm ride, it feels remarkably sort of easy, particularly because you've got this Tiptronic gearbox in here rather than the 6-speed manual. The car actually had a power output increase just after this car was made to 305 PS, and then in about 2002 they increased the capacity of the engine to 3.6 litres, generating 320 horsepower. When the 40 Jahre, I think it's 40 Jahre, or 40 Jahre edition came out, that had 345 horsepower for the 3.6. All the others were 3.6 litres. The power outputs then climbed to 420 horsepower for the 996 turbo. There's also a crazy X50 version with 450 horsepower. Now, the S version of the turbo was like a sort of X50 with some options on it, and that also generated 450 horsepower. The GT3 was a normally aspirated engine but, with 360 horsepower, and then we have the RS model, that's 381, and then the most powerful of all, the GT2 model with 484 PS. Absolutely insane. I think 300 horsepower is absolutely fine for someone like me. That's not a problem. You can also get this car with 4-wheel drive in the Carrera 4 and the Carrera 4S. And there were different body styles available. There was a Targa version, there was a Cabrio version, and then this standard coupe, which is probably the most common one that you would find if you wanted to buy one. So the 40th anniversary model of 40 Jahre was one of the special editions. There's also a Millennium edition that's based on the Carrera 4 in, well, the year 2000. All the cars have the engine in the back. It's got a dry subsystem, interestingly. Having been in a 964 911 many years ago, I can also tell you that this is a lot more comfortable and easier to find the controls than the earlier cars were. Obviously those are much more expensive than these 996s are. For years I used to think the 996 referred to the year the car came out, because I think the 993 actually did, just the predecessor to this. Parts shared between the 993, 996, I don't think there are any actually. I could be wrong about that. I'm not sure there are any. I mean, somebody who's an expert on these cars may be able to tell me differently. I don't think there is anything in common between the air-cooled and the water-cooled 911s. So there was a facelift around 2002 when the 3.6 litre engine came in for the basic Carrera model like this one. And those do look a bit different. The fried egg headlamps, in quote marks, were very similar to the Boxster. Actually, this car does have a number of components shared with the Boxster, the original one. At the time, they were very controversial when the car came out in late 1997, and people said, it's not a proper Porsche 911. It doesn't look right. It's got a water-cooled engine. The body's similar but not the same. But I think the look of the car is quite good. I think the design's aged quite well. Having driven this car now for a little while, and having established that Mr. Franks, who was searching around earlier for his phone, we're recording on it, so it is here, and getting onto slightly faster roads, it is actually quite easy to drive. It's not. any way as intimidating at all as I was expecting, particularly with this Tiptronic gearbox. I might try that in the manual mode in a second, actually. So I'm going to try some manual mode action views. Slide it across to the manual mode. There's buttons on the steering wheel. So if I want to go down a gear, then I can. There's actually an indicator on the dash which shows me. That's into third. I've heard actually that people who have these cars don't really use this manual mode very much. It might be useful actually today because it's so ridiculously snowy that's going to be just useful starting on, say, like second or third gear if it gets bad. But I'm not sure if it were me I'd particularly use this either. So being in Edinburgh in December when it's about 2 degrees outside and it's sort of somewhere between kind of mildly drizzling and sort of sleet, it's probably not the best conditions to be driving a 996 911. Nevertheless, the owner who has this car, Pete, he's told me that the lady who had it before him used to actually commute in London in this, and I can understand that. Obviously, if you just ignore the slightly firm suspension things, then it would be perfectly easy to do that, particularly with the Tiptronic gearbox. The stalks feel quite good in here. Actually, the whole thing does feel quite good quality. It doesn't feel in any way kind of fragile, which is good. That's that's obviously not what you want from your expensive supercar. The seat's very comfortable indeed. The driving position is absolutely excellent. It's everything that I expected from what I've heard about these cars. Even Mr. Coleman, rubbish mechanic, who he's very, very blunt with me about what he thinks about certain cars, and he actually quite likes these, which I found surprising. I didn't think he was that kind of person, but I'm actually quite enjoying it. I'm looking forward to maybe driving it a little bit faster than I've been able to thanks to the weather and the speed limits. But yes, it's very good. I'm really pleased to have had the opportunity to actually have a go in this. So we've got on this car a spoiler that actually I think moves at a particular speed, just to show the police behind you that you are speeding. And I think we'll just go fast up here. Here we go. Oh, viewers! That's enough, I think. Gone fast enough. Although on this particular car we've got wheels from a GT3, I better not drive it as if I actually am in a GT3. Well, viewers, I quite enjoyed that, if you couldn't already tell. Anyway, let's have a look at the 996's practical side by having a look in the front boot. Probably noticed on this car that the door handles aren't painted. They are awaiting some paint. They have been replaced. Right, let's open this up, shall we? So, front boot, fruit, trunk, whatever you want to call it. Traditional 911 thing. Engine at the back, boot at the front. We've got the brake fluid reservoir there, and also windscreen washer fluid. And the spare wheel lives in there. And we've been doing some woolading in there as well. You can actually fit a very small person in there, but I'm not a small person, so I'm not going to get in. So all the weight distribution of the car, of course, rear engine, rear wheel drive. This one, there are 4-wheel drive models of the 996 available too, is at the back. So the front is a little bit on the light side. I've heard some people with the earlier 911s do sort of weight these down, but having driven this, it seems okay without having to take such extreme measures. One thing you'll notice as well is these fried egg headlamps. They actually are a little bit cloudy on this car, but it has done 190,000 miles, so I think we can forget it. Also, you'll notice that the fuel filler is actually there because the fuel tank is in a bit of a different place than it would be on a conventional car. I've slid this seat all the way forward because this is the only way I can actually get in. But there's no legroom now for the front passenger at all. If I move this back, you can see that it's not great. It's really bad. Mr. Franks was in here in the front, and I was behind him earlier on. We went for a very short drive with me in the back, and it was not the most pleasant experience I've ever had. There are rear seat belts in here. There is a little sort of, actually no, there's this sort of armrest here, which we'll look at in a second. But yeah, I don't recommend you put anybody in here who's older than about 8 years old, unless you want to actually torture them. Got to be a bit careful getting in today. I'm standing on sheet ice. Lovely. So it's very comfortable in here, and actually the controls are where you'd expect them. One of my favourite things about this car is the CD storage. It reminds me of the cassette storage in the P10 Primera we filmed about 3.5 years ago. So this car is actually fitted with a Becker sat-nav unit. This is actually kind of very similar to the one that was originally fitted to my Row 45 V6. So they're very expensive. This is Porsche branded, of course, but it's made by Becker. We put the key in. You can actually see the centre console lights up, and it says manual rather than manual for the climate control. I think it's only actually single zone in this car, not dual zone. One thing that's really peculiar though is we've got these switches here. That's the door locking button and rear window and the rear wiper. I only found that out after we drove for quite a while, that actually you press that bit of the switch and not this bit. There's an identical row of buttons on the right hand side that don't do anything. Now I'm sure that in the higher specification models, this is just a Carrera 2, so that it's not the highest one in the range, that does something, but that doesn't. Also, this washer here is very, very peculiar. That's a very, very strange little thing, but I suppose it works. So below the climate control, which is actually automatic in this car, and the CD storage, we have a little cubby hole for things. So you engage the manual mode in this car by going to where it says M, just on the other side. A little bit like a J-gate in a Jaguar, but not quite. The Tiptronic controls are on here for going up and down. You can use either side if you want to. Cruise control system just down there, similar position to it would be, I think, on a Mercedes or something like that. Stalks feel good. They still look like really old 70s Volkswagen stalks, like they do in the Porsche 924. Electric windows are here. I think if this was a Cabrio, you'd have additional windows at the back there. This is the ashtray. It's a surprisingly kind of springy thing there. But this car's done 190,000 miles, so we're not going to do concerned about it. Stay there. Or I'll have to leave it maybe. This, I think, is the lockable compartment there. That's actually what we could have glove box. If I turn that off and I put this in here, you see what's in there. Not a lot. We do, however, have a little thing to put in the cigarette lighter compartment. It's there if we want to do that. This car's got a nice manual handbrake. I do like a nice manual handbrake in a car. The position of the instruments is really, really good. We're not offset like some of the earlier 911s would have been. The rev counter's right in the middle, not the speedo. The speedo goes up to 180. It's a little bit confusing with these gradations being the way that they are, 25, 50, 7500 rather than, I don't know, 20, 40, 60, 80 would be, but it's fine. Got a nice prompt hazard light switch there. And also the vents are interestingly designed. They sort of follow the flow of the dash very nicely. I think the design of this car is called Pinky Lie or something like that. It's an interesting name. With this model, because it's a Tiptronic, we have a little control here for the automatic gearbox position. Fuel gauge is there, temperature gauge, and then we've got oil pressure on the right hand side. As John Davis from Motor Week would say, a full package of instruments. Down here we've got the release for the front boot, or fruit, or frunk, or whatever you want to call it, and the engine compartment lid is here. Got electric memory seats in this car. I would wish today that these were heated, but they're not. Never mind. It's not the end of the world, really. Keys in an interesting place. It's right up here. I suppose if you have an accident, that's not going to foul your knees or anything like that. Headlamp adjuster just here. The dash is covered with some quite nice. I think this is real leather up here, which is ever so nice. There is an electric sunroof, but in so many old cars, I just don't like touching them because if they break, then you're in a lot of trouble, and this isn't my car, so I'm just going to leave that, actually. Got little sun visors here. Well, they are illuminated. Isn't that interesting? It's quite handy. And overall, this is a really, really nice place to be. I just wish I could get this ashtray to go back. Yes! Finally, something done competently on Tweed Jacket Reviews. So then, what do I think of the 996 911? This isn't a car for the man or woman who wants to run something on a shoestring. I mean, you can't even buy them for what the owner paid for this car 18 months ago anyway. But it is surprisingly easy to drive. The visibility is quite good, and there are specialists out there who help you with all the problems, including the notorious IMS bearing. Oh, excuse me, I'm terribly sorry. Hasn't it occurred to you that she's after your money? Thank you for watching this episode of Tweed Jacket Reviews. Please don't forget to like this video, leave a comment below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And if you wish for me to source a car for you, there is a link to my website in the description below.
Even if the side of it is not yet touched our